Welcome to Spunky Spirit with Cari Muggs, where we talk about spiritual empowerment, growth, and connection. Here's your host, spiritual life coach, author, and intuitive advisor, Cari Muggs.
Hello, and welcome to Spunky Spirit. So today I'm going to talk about what a reading is and what it's like. I get lots of people who get nervous before they come because they don't know what to expect. And I just thought this might help people out there understand what a reading is. So I provide psychic and mediumship, and I just want everybody to know out there that every medium's different. So every medium they get messages different, they do their readings different. I went to a class a couple weeks ago on how to format your readings. They tested me on how much information I got from Spirit. And at that, I certified, and I got okay, but I realized that with all the 18 other girls there and the teacher, that every medium's different. There is no right or wrong way. Honestly, there's no special format. The way you get messages from Spirit is the way you're supposed to get messages from Spirit. There might be some people out there that want you to organize stuff and tell you how to do things, but and how to relay the message to the sitter. I understand that, there's some really heavy-duty things that come through in the reading sometimes, that like suicides and things like that you want to relay the message as careful as you can. But other than that, the way you get messages or the way somebody sees Spirit is different for everybody. So each medium's different. Every time I've gone to Sedona each year, I get a reading, and both readings have been completely different from each other. I do mostly psychic and mediumship readings. I don't really get into past lives or guides. I can see that stuff, but unless they're specifically asked for, I don't really do those readings, just because I'm an evidential person. And in a psychic and a mediumship reading, I like the evidence. I like when the grandfather comes through and says he died of a certain sickness, and you have his watch in your drawer. I like stuff like that because it's pretty concrete. Guides and past lives, I can see them, but I feel really bad because how do you know someone's not making that up, right? Like, how do you know? There's no evidence. I mean, I can be like, okay, you're going to get validation through this and this. So I don't mind doing them, but I really like the psychic and the mediumship a lot more. So that's what I mostly provide. But if you wanted a different one, you could let me know and we could try that. So every medium's different, and every medium has a different strength of how they hear Spirit, or see Spirit. So Spirit will give you, there's these things called the clairs. So you get clairaudient, clairvoyant, claircognizance, and every medium has these gifts, but some are stronger than the others. So the teacher that I went to 2 weeks ago, she had the gift of feeling. So she could feel what the spirits were like. She could feel their personality. She could feel them. That's not one of my strongest ones. So she could say, oh, I have this feeling of, she could describe what the inside of your grandfather's car looked like, and what it was like to go on a drive with him, and how awesome the feelings were. And I can feel sometimes, but it's not one of my strongest ones. Mostly my strongest one is they show me pictures, or they tell me, or I see it. I see the vision of it. So I can see the grandfather driving the car and going on a road trip. So every medium's different. What I want you to know, for those people out there that are medium and psychics that are like toning into their gifts, every one is different. There is not one right or wrong way to do this. So be yourself and just trust what you're getting, and know that your way is the way Spirit wants you to communicate. Now, can you tweak some things once in a while and learn some lessons about how to do certain things? Sure, you can, and you can know certain symbols. But honestly, I use a pen and paper when I do readings. I write and scribble because that helps me connect to Spirit better. Some mediums don't do that. Some mediums use cards because that helps them to connect to spirit better. I scribble on paper because there's so much energy that comes through that's how I release the energy, and that's how I focus. So that's kind of where it stands with all mediums. So if you come to a reading with me, I'm just going to kind of tell you what to expect with me. Now, just know that when you do go get a mediumship reading, spirit is in control. Spirit can show you, and we don't summon people. We don't do the whole woo-woo stuff. But that doesn't mean if you don't see if somebody doesn't come through that you wanted to, at the end you can say their name, and the medium can still try and connect to them. Not that they always can, because again, spirit is in charge, and we're just kind of at the mercy of what spirit brings through, right? So if you go to a reading, don't set the expectation of just hearing from somebody like your father. Like I did go to a reading once, and I just wanted to hear from my dad. And in that reading, my dad didn't come through. That doesn't mean my dad didn't love me. It's just that sometimes they come through when you need to hear them most and when you don't. And I don't know why my dad didn't come through. And it really could be that the medium had an off day, because we're human. And sometimes it's harder to connect on some days than it is other days. So, but then when I went to my next reading, my father completely came through. So, but the first medium, when my father didn't come through, other people came through, like my grandma and my aunt, and it was it was accurate. So just know, you don't go into a reading thinking, okay, this is who's going to show up, and then bank on that, because sometimes, not all the time, 90% of the time, that person will show up for you. But there's that 10% of the time when, for some unknown reason, you don't need to hear from that person at that time, or somebody else needs to come through and tell you things stronger, or the medium has just picked up on so many spirits that one didn't stand out strong enough. Especially like if you have a grandmother or a grandfather who's shy, they've still got their same personalities on the other side, right? So they're not going to come in full force and be like, I want to talk. They're going to be shy. Their personality's still going to be shy. So they're still going to carry that over with them to the other side. So, and I want to also clarify that this information I'm giving you is my opinion. It's not set in stone. It's not gospel. This is just what I've seen and what I've experienced. If you talk to a different medium, they might tell you something completely different. So just remember that. So, during my readings, you can ask questions at any time. And they're welcomed, actually. I mean, but a lot of times people don't ask questions till the end, just because there's so much information coming through that they're trying to process it. Does that make sense? And they just want to hear everything that spirit or their ancestors have to say to them. So when you go to a reading, make sure you do have a list of questions that you want to ask. But most of the time, those questions will be answered by the end of the reading, and you won't have to go over them. But if you do have a list of questions, just make sure that some of the answers you're getting are pertaining to those questions, because sometimes you could be in the reading and think, oh, that means this, when actually spirit knows what your questions are, and they're trying to answer on the list of your questions. And I hope that makes sense. So just know, in readings, since we're psychic and mediums, we can see past, present, and future, right? But the future can always change. You have your free agency. You can do what you want. You can create what you want. So, and I, as a medium, I'm not a negative Nelly. I'm not a doomsayer, and I don't see death. So I ask my sitter or my client, do you want to see everything? They tell me yes or no. I said, if there's anything that comes through that makes you uncomfortable, just tell me and we'll move forward. And they say fine. So the future can be changed. If spirit came through and said, or psychically I saw there was a promotion at your job, right? And then you get so excited that you go to your job the next day and get naked on the tables and dance, you're probably not going to get that promotion, right? So just know that future things can change. There can always be a shift. There's never, ever anything set in stone. And then also too, what I don't want is, if the spirit comes through and you don't know who they are, and mediums don't like it when you're like, oh, that could be my uncle's brother's cousin's nephew. No, there's a reason why that spirit came through. Write it down, and you'll probably realize once you get home and you kind of meditate on the reading or remember the reading, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's totally what it was. Because what happens when you get into a reading is you kind of get psychic amnesia. You can't remember everything in your whole life in a 1 hour period of time, right? So sometimes things will come through and you'll be like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. So technically try and write it down if the medium lets you have a piece of paper and pen. And then once you get home and you're relaxed and you're not so nervous, then Spirit will bring through, this is what that meant. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that. And that's totally fine. The great things about readings is sometimes it doesn't just take that hour that you did a reading. Sometimes it takes a couple weeks or a couple months to process all the information that came through. Now, I record my readings and I send them to my clients when the reading's done. I let my clients take notes during the reading, but there are some mediums out there that do not. Some mediums do not record it, and some mediums don't let you record it, and some mediums don't let you write it down. Some of times their thinking is it's too much of a inconvenience, or it's too much of a I don't know, what do you call it? Distraction, because you'll be like, oh, what was that again? And the medium will have to repeat what you said. But I let my clients do it just because I think that it's good for them to go back, replay it, and go back to it. So remember too, in readings, that Spirit tells you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear. So again, go in there with these readings with an open mind and not expecting, to tell you if your love life's going to be great and awesome and you're going to get married and go off and ride white horses into the sunset. Because if that might be what you want to hear, but sometimes that's not what you need to hear. Sometimes you might hear, this isn't the one for you, or this one is doing something on the side. And also being said that too, remember, you still have your decisions. Do not take any medium's advice as set in stone, as law. Like, you still make your own decisions. It is not your medium's responsibility to make decisions for you. You make these decisions. I have had people contact me asking me specific details of when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? And Spirit won't show it, because Spirit wants you to make your own decisions and have your free agency. So just know, we're kind of at the mercy of Spirit. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes they'll show us, sometimes they won't. So, okay, so when I say Spirit, I mean the universe, God, angels, your guides, Holy Ghost. They all come in as one to me, right? So Spirit is 100% accurate in what they show me. And they show me signs, and they show me symbols, and I have to try and interpret it. And it's like German. I have to try and figure out, because you've got your own perception in your head. The Spirit that's coming through has their own perception, and I've got to try and figure out how to interpret that so the perceptions are together, or give you the evidence that you need, right? So Spirit's 100% correct in what they show me, but I can be 100% wrong in my interpretation. So some examples are, one time Spirit showed me a train, and I was giving a reading, and I said, hey, I think you're going to go on a vacation. He said, no, I'm really, really sick. I'm not going anywhere. And I said, no, I think you're going to go on a vacation and travel, and you're going to travel soon. And he said, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm really, really sick. And I said, well, Spirit's showing me a train. He said, oh, I love trains. My grandfather gave me a toy train when he passed. My room is full of trains. I collect trains. And if I would have kept saying, no, you're going to go on a trip, you're going to go on a trip, that reading would have been a total bomb for him. So just know, if you go into a reader, sometimes tell them to just tell them what you see and not have them try and interpret it. Now, there are times, will I admit, that I see balloons and I think it's birthdays. And I'll say, Spirit, show me there is a birthday. They'll say yes. But it honestly could mean that you had a bouquet of balloons delivered to you that day. So just always know Spirit's just the symbols and the signs. And it's really cool when you get names, like clear names. Sometimes I'll get names, sometimes I'll just get letters. So it just depends also on the spirit and how well they can communicate with me, how my connection is, all that kind of plays into play. And even how nervous you are can play into that too. So not to like make you scared or anything, because I know that readings can be make you nervous, but just try and calm and take deep breaths, okay? Also, sometimes spirit will show me visions that the sitter, my client, will relate to better than me. So one of my clients' grandfathers came through. He showed me Cowboys and Indians. And I said, hey, your grandfather showed me Cowboys and Indians. Did you play Cowboys and Indians? Or did you have a picture? Do you have a picture of Cowboys and Indians in your home? She said, no, he was a sheriff and got shot in the head by an Indian on the reservation. And so if I would have, there's no way I would have put that together, right? The spirit would have shown me a head wound and all that kind of stuff. It would have taken, but she knew exactly what that was, exactly when she said it. So exactly when the spirit came through and showed her. So lots of times spirits will come through and tell you and give you symbols that you understand more than the medium will. And always give the medium that validation. Yes, I know what that is. This is what happened. You're not giving them extra information. You're just validating, because nothing is worse than when someone just sits there and says, yes, no, yes, no, yes, because then that makes the medium nervous, and then it lessens the connection. Does that make sense? So validate the things that are coming through, the evidence is coming through, because then the medium feels like, okay, this is resonating. I'm on the right track. I'm on the right frequency, right? Because spirit's frequency is pretty high. Ours is a little lower. So when I do the readings, spirit will lower their frequency and I have to raise mine. So the frequency we have to make sure we're on the right channel. It's like a radio station. And so if I'm like bringing through stuff that's not even resonating with my client, then I know I'm not on the right station, right? So, and it's not fun for you either. So if that happens to me, which it really never has, but I will, if we get through a reading and we're in at 10 to 15 minutes and nothing's resonating, then I'll just know that that's not my day and I'm not connecting well, and I'll just give the money back and we'll try again another time. So it's good to know, let the medium know, yes, this is resonating. Yes, I understand this. Okay, that helps out a lot. It makes the reading flow just a little bit better. And hopefully the medium is bringing in some evidence for you so you know that that's the person that's actually coming through is accurate. And remember, spirit most mediums, I don't know, we can't always guarantee who comes through. So again, just be open, be receptive to whoever comes through. More than likely, if you go into the medium and say, this is who I specifically want, more than likely they can connect to him. So, but if you don't want to go in there and directly say, then we're going to have all these other spirits coming in too, and the medium's got to pick up on each and every one of those spirits. So just remember that. And sometimes, honestly, spirits that you don't even really know, like your neighbor's son, could come through just because you have access to the neighbor. So just have an open mind and try and, I don't expect you to take a list of everyone who's passed, because there's no way you're going to be able to do that. But I do know spirit will validate to you later who those if you don't recognize who they are in the readings, you'll be validated later. So just kind of keep that in mind too. Just know that these readings, they're kind of sacred. What comes through for you is meant for you, not for your neighbors, not for your mom. It's meant for you. Now, if there's messages for your mom that comes through, that's great. But if there's a spirit that comes in and says, dairy's not really good on your stomach, that doesn't mean you run to your neighbor and say, okay, spirit told me not to have dairy. Spirit told we're not supposed to have dairy. That's not for them. It's for you. And they're just, these readings, they're kind of sacred. They're because when the frequency is raised, your frequency raises too. So they're a lot to process, and they're kind of sacred for you, and they're like your own validation, your own connection with spirit, until using a medium kind of as a tool, until you can one day get to that point where you can maybe connect by yourself and you won't need a medium anymore. And that's basically the whole goal of it, my goal is anyways, is to open people up enough that they can start using their own senses and using their own clairs and, connect to spirit on their own. So maybe only get validation once in a while. But that's pretty much what readings are, is just your connection to your loved ones. You get closure. There are a lot of, they're awesome and they're healing and they're amazing, and it's a process. Every healing is. I mean, all healing is a process. So, but don't be scared of them. There's no drama. There's no woo-woo. There's no, in mine anyways, it's just pretty upfront. We sit down, it's comfortable, and I just tell you what I see, and I tell you what they say, and I tell you, some evidence that comes through that they want, so they can validate that it's them. And you go home and you relax, and you might be tired for a couple days. Now, sometimes readings make me tired, and sometimes they give me a ton of energy. So it just depends on you. You might go home and the reading would maybe take a lot of energy from you, so I would need you to ground. You'd have to either chew gum, put your feet in the grass, barefoot, or take an Epsom salt bath. But all in all, they're pretty awesome. They're pretty healing. I've never, in all the years that I've been doing this, I've never had a bad experience in a reading. They're pretty cool, and they're pretty validating, and just the feeling that you get there is such a frequency, a higher vibration. Now, that being said, if you do go to a medium and you do feel like it's scary, or you don't have a good gut feeling about it, or the medium's not bringing in evidence and that kind of stuff, then yeah, I wouldn't. But I've never had that experience either, so I couldn't really tell you. Just follow your gut. Usually spirit takes you to the mediums that you need, or the person that is good for what you need. So just kind of follow that a little bit. But there you have it. That's kind of how readings work. That's kind of what they are. There's no need to be nervous, but I know how it feels because I've been on the other side when I've gotten my readings and I wanted my dad to come through. So they're just kind of cool, and they're kind of a cool experience. I think everyone should at least experience them at least once in their lifetime. And, word of mouth is always great. If you have friends who have been to a medium, asking spirit to guide you to one would be great. If you find one, kind of validate with spirit that maybe that one will be the one for you. So, yeah, if you have any questions about it, just DM me and I'd be happy to answer. And also, too, remember that every week on Mondays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, I do Cari Connects. I pull a weekly card that kind of gives you an idea of how your week might go, and it's kind of fun to watch. Also, too, there's lots of meditations. Follow me on Instagram. You go in the link in the bio, and I'm going to be putting up meditations, or you can just go to my website at carimugz.com. It's CARIMUGZ.com, and there's meditations and resources on there, and that's where you can also book a reading. So, love you guys. You're awesome. I hope that helped. I hope that answered some of your questions, and I will see you next time.